much, my belly overwhelmed by what I had been chosen to perform. But then an angel came one day, told me to kneel down and pray, for unto me a man-child would be born. Oh, this crazy circumstance, I knew his life deserved a chance, but everybody told me to be smart. Look at your career, they said, Lauren, baby, use your head. But instead I chose to use my heart. Now the joy of my world is in Zion. Now the joy of my world is in Zion.
KBLA Talk 1580. We are talking parenting. We're welcoming in to the space a new guest. We haven't actually had a chance to talk to her on the air before. She's the founder and executive director of a group called Parenting for Liberation, recognized as an inspirational parent by CADRE and as a Black Feminist Rising in 2017 by Black Women's Blueprint. She's a leader on the rise, and she says she's taking Black parents and children to higher heights. As a proud Black feminist mama-activist, she's the founder of Parenting for Liberation. She wants to support Black parents and help us heal from and interrupt intergenerational violence to build resilient and joyful Black families in community. Trina Greene, welcome.
Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for welcoming me.
Yeah, thanks.
It's an honor to be here to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So we actually did meet in person, but unfortunately we weren't able to get you in here today. But we met at the Poetess's spot, and
Yes.
a really, excellent program that you guys were doing there as part of, your work with families, which also means working not just with parents, but also with children.
Yes, that's one of our newest programs that we did. Shout out to the Poetess for holding us down and supporting us with our summer program with teenagers. Yes, it was our first time doing that program. It was called a Youth Voice Storytelling Program, and it was an honor that you and so many folks came out to talk to the young people.
Yeah, it was fun to meet folks. But here's the thing, when you talk about parenting, it's a tough topic because everyone has their own theories, their own way of doing things. We have our so-called traditions, which I feel like many of them are toxic, but that's an unpopular opinion. We have this very, common, this is a talking point Tuesday around here. It's a joking point, which is we always talk about how bad white kids act because their parents don't discipline them. And so the flip side of that is we're supposed to be beating, snatching, and cussing at our kids, which I don't agree with. I'm not going to say I never cussed at my kid, but the snatching and beating part, not so much. And so you're talking about really entrenched habits and traditions, and that makes it a difficult conversation, doesn't it?
Very much so. You're spot on. Too often we associate those things, snatching, grabbing, whooping, spanking, whatever the language is, we associate that too often with Black parenting or tough love, and we consider any other deviance from that quote unquote white and not traditional. But in my research and talking to parents and going back to the motherland and digging into the history of some of the things that we have labeled as Black parenting or our way, is not really our way. And so I've been doing a lot of work to unlearn that myself, and learn the real history of when we were introduced to utilizing violence as our form of parenting, as our discipline measure. And it wasn't something that we brought with us here. It's stuff that we learned here in our experience in chattel slavery. So I am trying to really help share that knowledge that I learned, to try to prevent so many Black babies from experiencing such violence or toxicity, as you called it. I know it's a balance, so you're right. It's a very I don't know, taboo, sometimes risque conversation to have because people hold tight to things that are considered Black tradition. But the research is showing that it's not helpful to Black babies. It's not helpful to their brain development. It's not helpful. It's not working.
It's not helpful to any baby, to be clear. Latino baby, white baby,
right.
like that. It just isn't. But it's interesting that you say that, because from traveling to Africa, I think I've been 7 times. They beat their kids. They're quick with a switch and a hand and a this and that. So when you say that we didn't bring it with us, does that mean they got it from colonizers too?
That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned in my research and reading. I've done some work with Dr. Joy DeGruy, who does the work on post-traumatic slave syndrome, and just looking at how we learned it here, Black folks who were brought here. They also experienced colonization and imperialization, so they might also have learned it. But when I talk to folks and I talk to them about like parenting, I've had conversations with Black parents in Ghana, and talk to them about like parenting and liberation and like what does that mean, and like what are the cultural traditions around child rearing, and it doesn't start with violence. It starts with children being sacred. It starts with children being closer to the ancestral realm, and how do we honor them? How do we nurture them? It doesn't start with and we have to keep them in control in the same kind of way. There's a level of, it feels like freedom to like explore. Like when you talked about how here in America, Black folks see like white kids who are running around free, or any kids who are free and like, untethered to their parent as bad or unruly. And that level of freedom is what I also experienced of children in Africa when I was there. There was a level of like being able to move more freely. There was not the same level of fear that I experienced as a Black mama raising a Black boy here in the U.S., where I'm afraid for him to go free and be outside like that.
I mean, I've talked to Dr. DeGruy many times over the years. She's a great scholar, and she was the one who actually brought my attention to some of my own parenting blind spots. Because the thing is, we are epigenetically and traditionally still shaking off things we learned from our enslavement. And one example was when she said, when someone compliments our kids, we downplay it. And I realized I was doing that all the time. Oh, you should see how bad he is at home. Oh, girl, no, but he's a problem. And when she said we learned to do that because we didn't want our children being sold away from us, he's really not that great. She's terrible. You don't want her. I had to stop doing that. I had to stop doing that. Oh, your child is so brilliant. Oh, girl, he won't do his homework. Like those are habits yeah, exactly. That's something that I was unconsciously doing, and it's just one example.
Yes, same. I definitely learned that as well. Like that was an epiphany moment for me. And then I also remembered it growing up. And so I was just like, oh, wow. Like I remember being like people complimenting, whether it be like, oh, my book smarts or this or that. And they would say it, and my mom wouldn't necessarily also follow up with a compliment, sometimes. And like, oh, her mouth. Right. I was the one who had the mouth. I had the mouth. Obviously, look at me now. I'm talking. But yeah, I would get criticism as opposed to like, yeah, but she has this great GPA and she speaks publicly at, these different events. It wasn't always positive, affirmation. And I think I held on to that and harbored that, as a child. And so I did catch myself like redoing that to my own children. And so it did take me like having those epiphany moments in my research and learning that denigrating them was a form of what she calls, Dr. Joy calls, maladaptive parenting practices, that we picked up these practices as a way to keep our kids safe during enslavement. And I think there are some folks who, when I'm talking about this work around liberating ourselves and liberating our children, I get pushback that like it might not be maladaptive because we are still living in a society where there's white supremacy, there's still violence, there's still threats to our children, there's still threats to us. So I understand when people are like, but we have to have a balance. And so that's been the work of Parenting for Liberation, is just really trying to figure out how to meet parents where they are, right? Like everybody has a different parents and philosophy, parents and practice. We talk about the different parenting types. We talk about, the different, punitive ways that we parent just in society. It's like the idea of like children as born inherently sinful, are children born inherently bad? Like, how do we break some of those notions so that we can actually see our children for who they fully are and cultivate them into who they could be by speaking life into them instead of putting them down. So it's definitely been a labor of love. We've been doing it for Parents for Liberation. I started in 2016. So we're almost at our 10-year anniversary. And we've been doing work. We started initially doing work only with Black parents, and just really thinking about just having these kind of conversations with Black parents. Like, how is it? What type of parenting style do you want to practice? What are you learning? What are you unlearning? How were you raised as a parent that you want to heal from? And how do you want to raise the next generation? So it's been a lot of that work. And more recently, we started realizing that we can't just work with parents in a vacuum. Like, we have to bring parents and the children or the young people together. And so we started that new program that you are a part of, where we bring together teenagers with their parents. That program is called Strong African American Families. It actually is a research-based curriculum that came out of the University of Georgia. It's like a 7-week curriculum where parents and their teenagers work together, sometimes together in space and sometimes in separate spaces where the young people can go with a youth leader to talk about like communication and their own beliefs and their own sense of cultural pride and Black identity and like what kind of young person and young adult do they want to be. So really helping young Black children, teenagers, like move through their own sense of what are their goals and what are their hopes and what are their dreams, and then how can they work with their parents to achieve their goals. And at the same time, the parents are in another room talking to one of our adult facilitators, a community member, about what do they want to shift in their parenting relationship with their teen. Because, that teenage time is when they want to individuate and come up with their own ideas and their own sense of self. And so sometimes it's hard for Black parents to let go. I mean, all parents, but Black parents specifically, because of the added fear, the added weight of racism in the society creates a different level of burden for Black parents. And so that's been a beautiful program.
Trina Greene is our guest. She's the founder and executive director of Parenting for Liberation. You want to weigh in? Give me a call, 800-920-1580. You are listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-297-1563 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-297-1563. That's 800-297-1563. What do you have to lose? Call 800-297-1563. Again, 800-297-1563.
Let's go!
You're still grooving, still connecting, still loving, still turning up, still thriving. You still got it, but your immune system, it weakens as you age. That's where vaccines come in. They help train and strengthen your immune response to fight off respiratory illnesses like flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, or COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Book in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. If you're a guy facing divorce, remember, Cordell and Cordell, a partner you can count on.
1455 Frazee, San Diego. CordellCordell.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thank you indeed. I do appreciate you. And we're talking with Trina Greene, who's founder and executive director of Parenting for Liberation, working with parents and children to try to do, we can all do a better job at the very difficult assignment of parenting. And the thing about it is that I think it's really true that any program that only deals with parents and doesn't talk to children, or only deals with children and doesn't talk to kids, is not going to be that effective. You can, it's like you think of the idea of cleaning something. You clean a kid and send them home to a dirty house, or you clean a parent and send them home to a filthy room. They're not going to be cured in any way, shape, or form. So I think it's great that you guys are looking at the holistic family in your approach.
Yeah, I used to be a youth organizer, youth worker prior to starting Parenting for Liberation, and that's what I learned in my work. I was like, I'll be honest. It's, we're just being honest and transparent. I used to be a youth organizer, and I feel like our training was all we needed to meet with the parents was to have them come to parent orientation, sign the waiver, and then say that their kids can go with us on these different excursions, and they could go to the camps, and they could go to the rallies, and they could go talk to the legislator. We were doing all this work organizing young people, but they were still going home, and then it would create friction because they would have information or knowledge or different perspectives than what they had learned in their homes, and we would leave parents behind, if that makes any sense, even though that might sound like, how do you leave parents? But you could leave part of the family behind if you only educate or work with one group. And then I started Parenting for Liberation, and I'll admit, I initially was like, I want to focus specifically on the parents, because there's not a lot of organizations that really are about supporting parents. Too often funders and resources are like, no, they're grown, they made their decision, and they want to just give resources to programming that's about youth and youth development and saving the children. And I didn't want to fall into that narrative that we need to save Black children from their parents. No, we need to support and resource the whole family in order to do this work. So yeah, thanks for naming that. We need to do the both and, or the whole family approach, or some people call it the 2-gen approach, or multi-generational approach to doing this work. And so that's
right.
our new goal.
Family systems approach is what the shrinks call it. And the thing about it is, saving Black kids from their parents or Black parents from their kids is definitely not the answer. And when you change the philosophy of one person, but especially when you change the philosophy of kids because parents are in charge, it might not go well.
Creates friction.
So I always, my famous quote is, if we updated our parenting skills as often as we update our phones, we'd be in a lot better shape. Is that part of it? Is part of it about us connecting to more modern parenting, or is it just, getting rid of toxic behaviors?
I think it might be a little bit of both, to be honest. And I might say, even remember we just talked about earlier about the return to ancestral ways of parenting. So it might be like going back Sankofa, taking what works and bringing it forward, right? So it could be a little bit of both. And then I think there are always, just what is currently going on. Our children are experiencing a different world than what we experience. So what tools we need to be updated. What approaches need to be updated. Our children have access to so much more information through social media, through TikTok, through the cell phones. And so there was a way that in previous generations, you didn't talk to your kids about certain things. They didn't know. They weren't reading the paper like that. So there was a way that people would, keep their children away from information that's more readily available. So I think the tools have to shift, and we have to grow with the times. We have to know what they're learning about online. We have to have some of those hard conversations. I know that my kids find out about different injustices that I'm not ready to talk to them about, right? And so too often Black parents have to have the quote unquote the talk with our kids about, whether it be police violence or state sanctioned violence or things that in the past parents didn't necessarily talk to their kids about. So it is time for us to kind of update our tools and to stay with the times. But some of the like things that are consistent across time, regardless if you're online or not, is about having that supportive relationship with your child and really wanting to see them for who they are and speaking life into them. Like that is universal, past, present, and future. Really pouring into your child and lifting them up. Is a skill that you can't necessarily learn online. That's just universal.
Yeah, I was just having a disagreement with one of my regular members of the KBLA delegation who was saying, which a lot of elders do, because I think they have, they don't have maybe they don't have a relationship with a lot of young people now or whatever, but that kids now have it easier. And I just don't think that's true. I think they have different challenges. You might be able to sit at the lunch counter or sit at the front of the bus, but they've got, doxing and online harassment and bullying and the threat of revenge porn and the kind of psychological pressure that everybody being on social media places on them, and threats of war and the existential crisis of our, the viability of our planet and all kinds of pressures that we did not have in the same way.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're debating with people, I guess I'm on your side because I agree. I think that young people nowadays are experiencing a different type of racialized terror and violence. It's more conspicuous, it's more hidden, right? It's not as like overt, it's more covert. That makes it harder to even point it out, right? It makes it harder for young people to be like, oh, this thing is happening to me, but it's so hidden that they can't articulate that they're experiencing racism or they're experiencing bullying. Because, like you said, it can happen in a text message, it can happen in social interactions, and it's not as obvious or blatantly racist or violent, to someone who's not paying attention. So I don't think that they have it easier. I think they have it different, as every generation does. And you're right, with the added social media, that has just added a level of stress for young people. I mean, they also grew up in a pandemic,
Yep.
They're experiencing, in the past we experienced the war on drugs. There's a different type of war or terror that's happening in our communities. Gentrification is happening in a different way. Push out, like Black people are getting pushed out of LA and California and in droves. And so I think we're just experiencing climate change. Like they're experiencing so much, that previous generations didn't deal with. And so I think that we need to give young people grace. I think the elder generation should support the Black parents who are raising this generation and not give us such a hard time and say that we're not doing it right, because we're doing our best as parents as well, because we've never parented in these conditions either. Like this is a whole new world for all of us, and we just need all the generations, the elders, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles. Yeah. It takes a village, is like the saying, but we need everybody to support our babies.
So I'm going to circle back to this, even though you briefly touched on it. Artist Moore in our YouTube chat is asking, what is our tradition of parenting? So when you talk about Sankofa, what parts do we need to go back and get, to bring forward into this moment?
I mean, when I talk to parents, Black parents today, when they talk about what they miss from their childhood, I think it is that more communal way of parenting. We used to live in the same block with our people. Like, I used to go to my grandma's house and we would all be there for, all 77 grandkids. We would all be at grandmama's house. That like multi-generational approach to parenting, that grandmama and grandpapa and everybody was a part of the village that was raising the children. That has been lost, and I think that's due to like being pushed out of neighborhoods, being displaced, the housing crisis. Back in the day, like really eliminated grandmama's house for a lot of communities. For my family, that was one of the downsides to the housing market crash, is that we lost grandmama's house, which was a pivotal place where you would go to have community. I think that is a thing that we miss. That feels lost. We're much more isolated, where it's just our immediate families. And we're not having the multi-generational households that we used to have growing up is one of the things that we're missing. for me, is what I'm noticing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to reconstruct that because at this point, do you want strangers on the street checking your kid? I don't, right? If it was part of a community and they knew the child, we're all from the same block or the same community, that's one thing. But some random person, which I have had, because I've had people walk up to me in the middle of a conversation with my kid and tell me I'm doing it wrong, and I'm like, huh? Yeah, because yeah, don't let the smooth taste fool you. I will, no, go away. So what's the solution there?
To people trying to tell you about your parents, I think this is why parents.
I mean, to recreating that community when you don't want random strangers coming and telling your kid what to do and not do, or trying to quote unquote check them.
Yeah, I think we're having to rebuild the village. Some of that happens through, work like ours, where we're bringing Black parents together for retreats so they can meet other Black parents and who are aligned, values aligned, who are committed to like developing their children in a particular way, like trying to find like-minded folks who have a similar parenting style or who are committed to practicing liberation, who are committed to nonviolence in their parenting, and being able to identify each other. So we bring folks together so they can find each other, and we're always trying to connect people like who's in your area, because LA is also heck of massive. So that's one way, is just to find like-minded individuals.
Okay, hold that thought. My kids together. Hold that thought. We got news, traffic, and sports. We'll continue this on the other side. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Michael Hardaway, the Black former aide to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, says Democrats are strategizing after RFK Jr. fired CDC Director Susan Menares for resisting his vaccine agenda.
I mean, RFK Jr. seems to have no idea what he's doing here as it relates to keeping the American people safe and healthy.
RFK Jr. will testify Wednesday before the Senate Finance Committee on Trump's health care plan amid growing calls for his removal. Tia Bell, a Black 27-year-old mother of 9, was shot and killed last Thursday night in Chicago's East Garfield Park. She was standing outside with a man when a gunman opened fire. Bell died at Mount Sinai Hospital, and no arrests have been made yet. And Coco Gauff is out of the U.S. Open. The number 3 seed lost in straight sets to number 23 Naomi Osaka. It's Osaka's first Grand Slam quarterfinal since 2021. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, they've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself. Shop your local Nissan store and NissanUSA.com today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Naomi Osaka is playing like a Grand Slam tennis champion again. Osaka, the number 23 seed at the U.S. Open, eliminated Coco Gauff, the number 3 seed. Osaka needed only 64 minutes to beat Gauff 6-3 and 6-2. Gauff had 33 unforced errors. Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion, is in the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam event for the first time in 4.5 years. She faces Karolina Muchova of Czechia on Wednesday. Venus Williams advanced to the quarterfinals of the doubles competition at the U.S. Open. The 45-year-old Venus and Leylah Fernandez beat Ekaterina Alexandrova and Zhang Shuai 6-3 and 6-4. Venus and the 22-year-old Fernandez had never played together before this year's U.S. Open. They will play in the quarterfinals today against Taylor Townsend and Katerina Siniakova. You can catch today's doubles match live on ESPN at 1 p.m. Pacific time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Dr. Renee here. Did you know this time of year is considered peak asthma season because we typically see a spike in asthma-related hospitalizations? If you have asthma and are having difficulty breathing despite medication, it's time to check in with your doctor so you can help avoid landing yourself in the hospital this season. To learn more about managing your asthma, visit www.luma-edu.com. That's LUMA-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Imagine a world without heart disease and stroke, where every person has the chance to live a full and healthy life. Join us for a walk to save lives at the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Saturday, September 20th at the Rose Bowl. Every step made and every dollar raised means more people learning CPR, more life-saving research, and more time with the ones we love. Sign up at heartwalkla.org. The LA Heart and Stroke Walk is sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
We are talking parenting this hour. Trina Greene is with us. She's the founder and executive director of Parenting for Liberation. When you talk about your actual organization, what is the philosophical sort of underpinning? I mean, I know you consider yourself a feminist, and you've mentioned nonviolent parenting. But what's your sort of foundational philosophy for the organization?
That's a great question. I would say, so I did a lot of work. This is really a personal journey for me. I started this organization because like I said, I was an organizer with young people, and I really was all about youth voice, youth power, youth agency. And then I became a parent, and I saw myself slipping into quote unquote traditional parenting practices that were about stripping away my child's agency, right, beliefs. And I felt that there was a misalignment of values for me because I was a believer of equity and justice out in the world and organizing, but at home I wasn't practicing that. And so my philosophy for parenting is really how can I practice what I preach as a organizer, as a person who's about advocating for Black life and Black power, Black agency, and how can I let that practice around equity and justice and liberation be at the core and center of my parenting. And so liberated parenting is the practice that I have been working to cultivate in partnership with my team, with staff, but also mostly with community, with Black parents who join our events, Black parents who come to our programming. I feel like parenting is an ongoing learning journey. It's not like I've got it and it's set because our children are always growing and evolving. I'm always growing and evolving. So I would say the philosophy is one that is about iteration and innovation, always continuously learning and growing, but it's rooted in African. I went back to Africa and talked to folks to learn about practices pre-colonization, pre-imperialization, and really rooted in the honoring of our children and really wanting to speak life into them and centering equity, justice, liberation in my parenting, in my home, and practicing what I preach. And that has just led me on this journey of learning about different Black feminists and how they've parented and how they've talked about it, whether it be Audre Lorde talking about raising Black children in the mouth of a racist, sexist, suicidal dragon, requires that we teach them how to love and resist at the same time, or they probably will not survive. So even that, like learning from other Black feminist scholars who are also parents about how, like even Patricia Hill Collins and the work around mothering and mother work, and thinking about how can we learn from those Black feminists who have been doing this work of dismantling both racism, white supremacy, patriarchy, in ways that allow us as parents to be whole, but also for us to raise our children in ways that honor their being and support their own journey towards liberation. So that would be what I say guides the work of Parenting for Liberation.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's do a couple things here. First of all, you were starting to talk about what are some of those things that you found out as far as traditional parenting that predates colonization or enslavement. In response to Artis's question, but I think it also sounds like it's in response to your whole mission.
Yeah, so some things is like the simple things of like listening to children and like letting them, I know this might sound weird, but like kind of letting them be the guides to understand what they need. I know we think about parenting as like a top-down approach, and yes, we are adults, we are responsible, we have been here longer, we know more, where our goal is to protect and to provide for our children. But our children, as Khalil Gibran would say, like they're from us, but they don't necessarily have to do exactly and be exactly who we think they should be. That they in themselves will guide us based on what they need for who they are supposed to be in this world, right? I believe each person comes into this world with a divine purpose. And so if our goal is to protect and provide for them, it's also to support them to become who they're meant to be, not necessarily who we think they should be. And I think that is also what I learned is like, when I was in Ghana, they would say, like, the children are supposed to be around. You know how we say children are supposed to be seen but not heard, or stay in a child's place, or this is a grown folks conversation. They were like, no, the children are supposed to be around the grown folks. How do they learn how to be a part of community if they're separated and pushed to the side? So, like, the children are there while they're working, while they're cooking, like they're learning how to do all the things. The children are a part of the circle. They're not at the children's table, for example. That was one thing that I learned. I learned that it's not about just the individual family is responsible. Like how we talked about, we used to have this concept of a community or a village. You know, right now that's been ripped apart because of gentrification and things that are happening systematically with the communities being pushed out of like California, Los Angeles in different ways. But that communal way of doing it, like I was there and it was like you couldn't identify who was whose child's parent, because everybody was a part of the child rearing. Like, I couldn't say, oh, this is your child. It's like, they're all of our children, is how they would respond to me. And so that like real deep commitment to the collective, that mutual way of parenting, communal way of parenting, is something that I would love for us to go back to. I'm grateful just to have like the village that helps me raise my children, you know, the grandparents and the fathers and the stepfathers and all the folks who, the aunties and everybody, like that is also a core practice. And honestly, one of the core things of our organization is innovation. And so we do a program called the Innovation Lab where we give Black parents, you know, we select 10 parents every year. We give them $5,000 and we train them and support them on innovation and giving them resources and talking about the innovation history of Black folks and give them resources to come up with solutions to the problem. So some of the parenting strategies that Parenting for Liberation is doing is informed not by just the organization, but from the community members who come a part of the program and come up with solutions and come up with strategies and work together in our program to identify, like, here's a parenting practice that we want to try. Here's a parenting philosophy. So one of our new innovation fellows who's joining us this year is looking at how do we integrate African ancestral practices in our parenting, thinking about African languages, how do we teach our kids about traditions. And so that's their focus of their project, and they're going to be digging deep into the ancestral parenting strategies bag. And so it's really, for me, about how do I resource other Black parents to come up with the solutions, because it shouldn't be one sole leader, right? Ella Baker says we're a leaderful movement. So just really thinking about how do we invest in more Black parents and bring them to the table to be thinking about how do we liberate ourselves and our parenting, because once we can shift the way that we relate to our children, we can unlock so many potential healing for our families and our communities.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that, yeah, we want to know about African traditions, but I also think we do want to know about African American traditions. I'm not saying throw everything out. Not at all. I think we have great African American, specifically Black American traditions that are helpful and great. I just want us to be mindful about it, and not just Black parents, all parents. Like you, this is a Talking Point Tuesday. You said children should be seen and not heard. You were quoting that. It's one of the most famous quotes about kids, and I hate that. I think kids should be heard. How would you know what your child is going through if they're being bullied, if they're being sexually abused, if they're a creative genius, if they, you know, what they are their creative innovation is, if you don't listen to them, if they are only seen and not heard? To me, that's one of the most toxic parenting slogans ever.
Ever. Yes, it's one of the bad ones. And that's what leads to the things that you just named. Not letting our children speak, not talking to them, not hearing them and giving them a voice is what leads to that. One of the primary prevention strategies for gender-based violence, sexual violence, molestation, is that our children have a sense of bodily autonomy. They have a sense of their voice. And some people would say, oh, that's disrespectful. Like, you know, bodily autonomy means if my child doesn't want to hug that person or give that person a kiss, that they have that right within their body to say, no, I'm not comfortable hugging that person. But other people would say, oh, you need to speak, that's your elder, or you need to say hi, or that's disrespectful. And I think that is one of the shifts that we're having, is that our children actually have voice, and we should listen to them, because if we silence them, then they won't come to us when they need us the most. And also, if we silence them, they don't have their most powerful tool to protect themselves, which is their voice. And they don't have a sense of agency over their bodies either.
I don't know where we get this idea that kids don't have any rights. I know that legally they might not, but they're human beings, and human beings have rights.
Children's rights, yes. Bell Hooks wrote a whole section about it. Yeah, children do have rights. I mean, I think we believe that we are responsible for them, but we don't own them in the same way that I think we might hold. And I feel like that is some, I think that's some residue from enslavement or something to me, because this idea of like ownership or property, or like that we control who they are and who they can become, is why there's so many, let's just add, if we add the layer of like children who identify as LGBTQ, that's why we have so much severance in our families, because we don't allow our children to like show up and be who they want to be, who they've come to this world to be. Like everybody comes here with a divine purpose and a divine identity, right? And so I think being able to allow young people the space to figure that out and to make changes and to shift, because it's definitely an evolving time where people are exploring and curious about who they are and what they care about and their values and their beliefs. But yeah, I think that's important, that we can't tell our children to be strong, be brave, be smart, but then we limit that they can communicate and that they can have a difference of opinions, like the home is where they can cultivate that ability to have like voice and power and agency. Yeah. It's not disrespect. We're preparing them for the real world.
Yeah, it's a balance. I think I might have empowered my child too much, and they're always getting in trouble because they're used to having a mother that will listen, right? Then they go to school, and teachers don't want to hear that, even when the child is right, which is a whole other show. That's a whole problem. If you're telling children in the classroom 2 + 2 is 5, and a child says, no, 2 + 2 is 4, you don't punish them for contradicting the teacher. You reward them for thinking independently and coming up with the correct answer. But I think I probably set my child up for a lot of getting in trouble with that philosophy.
I'm sure you didn't, because I feel the same way. But I think that's why the third pillar of our organizational work is, if you're going to encourage your child to be free, then now you have to go out and make sure that the world is ready for free Black children, because the world is not ready for a smart, educated, empowered Black children. Sometimes, like I used to say, like, oh, I made my son bright, right? Like I wanted him to shine. So now I got to go make sure that there's nobody out there that's hating on his shine. So I got to make sure that I advocate. And so we do some work in community, like we start joint coalitions, we support Black parents in connecting with different organizing efforts, because once you have cultivated that power and agency in your home, you're going to realize that you have to utilize that power as a parent to interrupt systems that won't allow your child to be free. So you're going to have to probably be more active at that school and speaking up and utilizing your voice and organizing other parents and joining that PTA. It might require of you to be more engaged in the organizing efforts in your community, because now you have this liberated Black child who is going to speak up, as they should, because if they see something, they should say something. Or you're going to have the liberated child who is going to push the boundaries. And so I'm not saying that you need to have a lawyer on deck, but we should be more actively involved in supporting our young people and making sure that those different institutions, whether it be the medical, industrial complex, the school system, the mass incarceration system, like there's so much organizing work happening that we don't have to rebuild it. We just need to put parents in positions of power in those spaces, because parents are connected to all those systems through their children. And so we started. Go ahead.
No, finish your point.
I was going to say we started a coalition that does work around the child welfare system, because Black families are being impacted by the child welfare system or the family policing system, and we partner with other organizations like Movement for Family Power. And so that's another way, like tapping parents into these existing organizations that are doing work to make sure that our children can be free in all these spaces.
Morris Phillips says kids have rights, but they're a little short on power. That's a good point. That's why we as parents have to support them in those rights. We've got more straight ahead, only right here.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilmember Curran Price, inviting you to the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September the 20th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We've got 4 pavilions, 3 stages of live music, plus food, fun, and a marketplace all along historic Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Ave. Our featured acts this year are Gregory Porter, Pancho Sanchez, and Jasmine Horn at the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September 20th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. along Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Come out and bring the whole family because this legendary celebration is free. For more information, go to centralavjazzfest.com. I'm LA Councilmember Curran Price, and I absolutely approve this message.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-297-1563 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-297-1563. That's 800-297-1563. What do you have to lose? Call 800-297-1563. Again, 800-297-1563.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Talking with Trina Greene. She's the founder and executive director of Parenting for Liberation. I want to go right to Eric from Carson because we just got a few minutes left. Eric, can you give me the short version of your comment or question?
Yeah, my name is Eric Greene. So hi, Trina and Dominique. I just wanted to say real quick, when you spoke about the multiple families getting together, my family does that, but it's getting weaker and harder by the day. My mother is the last person elder left, and so I believe she's the reason that it's still sticking together. Once she's gone, then it's going to be wiped out altogether. And then as far as the children are concerned, I think parents are more trusting, used to be more trusting. The world was more accountable back when we were kids. Now, Dominique, you're one of the smartest people that I know. You don't sound like you trust the world with your child. I don't blame you. And I feel like the world is not accountable, and it's never going to get back to the way it was.
I don't trust the world, but I trust people that I vet. You know what I mean? And they're going to be heavily vetted. I'm talking lifetime vetting. I didn't leave my kid with anybody, and if I didn't really know a lot about them. So yeah, but I don't know if that's changed. I mean, there was weirdos going all the way back in time. Trina Greene, your thoughts about Eric's points?
Yeah, Eric Greene might be my cousin. We just had our family reunion yesterday. And you're right in terms of like the generational shift. I think we have to do it, Eric. You can't let it fall out. It's like I'm on the family reunion committee for my family. The elders have transitioned, and it's up to us, the millennials or whatever generation, to continue the legacy. Like, it's on us. The impetus is on us to keep it going. And so we've made the commitment to do that in our family. So, Eric, I hope you make the commitment to keep it going even after grandmama transitions, to keep it going, to make sure that the generations beyond you knows your family legacy. I've been on Ancestry.com looking up and printing out folders so that my children and the little babies will know where they come from. It's on us.
Yeah, it's well said.
We're the future elders.
Eric, you've been given an assignment, but I think you gave it to yourself. I think you gave it to yourself.
You got it, Eric.
Yeah. Jerry wants to know if there's anybody under 20 on the reunion planning committee, and I finally went to my family reunion, and they're just recruiting them. They're just drafting them. You, and you, young people. You're now on the reunion committee.
Yes. It's all the young people on the committee. The elders are now saying, put me on the committee, because now they don't like the way we're doing it. Put me on the committee next year. I want to be on the committee. Somebody told me that today. I'm like, you are welcome. You just got to be on social media, because that's how we communicate.
Well, that's hilarious. Eric, thank you for your call and your concepts. We just got about 60 seconds here. What would you like to leave us with? And hopefully that includes how to find your organization.
Yeah, I would just say, check us out on parentingforliberation.org, parenting4, FOR, liberation.org. On there, you can find all of our programs. We have a podcast. It's on all streaming channels. You can check it out, Parenting for Liberation. I wrote a book. It's called Parenting for Liberation, A Guide for Raising Black Children. It came out Juneteenth 2020. So you can pick that up buy from a Black bookstore if you can. And if you want to support our organization, parentingforliberation.org/donate. We're always looking for resources, and we're always looking for collaborations and partnerships with folks. We host events all year long. We have a Kwanzaa event coming up this year. And we do a Black History Month event every year that's for innovation. So if you want to join us at any of our gatherings here in the LA community, we're also virtual through the podcast and different platforms. Check us out. We love to have as many Black parents doing this work and raising liberated Black children, healing ourselves, healing generations past, and cultivating the future generation of liberated Black beings.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much, Trina Greene. I enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that's part of it, right? Family, we got to have the conversations. We might not all agree. We might not be on the same page. We have to have the conversations because that's what is going to make us think it through and come up with real evolved solutions for parenting and other tough assignments. Tavis Smiley is up next. He's got an incredible show on deck for you, a whole bunch of great guests for you. And of course, I want to remind you to tap in with me on social media, KBLA 1580 on every platform. I am at DiPrima Radio, DIPRIMA, and then radio. Please like, subscribe, and talk some smack. I always love to see you there. Like my mama, the great and late Diane DiPrima used to say, history is now, like I always add. We're making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Michael Hardaway, the Black former aide to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, says Democrats are strategizing after RFK Jr. fired CDC Director Susan Menares for resisting his vaccine agenda.
I mean, RFK Jr. seems to have no idea what he's doing.